Citizens, friends, neighbors, and council, it's my pleasure to present to you this evening the 2024-25 fiscal year budget for Brigham City. As you know, the budget isn't something that is put together over the course of a couple weeks. Preparation for the budget started back in January. Over the last couple months, we've been holding, and that's just for me. It started even before that for city staff in their own departments as they assembled what they wanted to present to the mayor's staff. Over the last couple months, we've been holding numerous meetings to discuss each department's expenses from the last year, future needs, and or wants for the future as well. For hours at a time, we all drilled down line by line to prioritize and plan not only for this fiscal year, but for the next 3 to 5 years as well. We, meaning myself, city staff, and our families, believe it or not, have listened to the public's comments in this meeting, the grocery store, my business, home, at church, and we've even dabbled into the forbidden, frankly harsh, and misinformed rumor mill we call social media. Was that too strong? Over those same months, we're ever mindful of the impacts this budget will have on our community. I am excited, though, about the direction we are headed and what this budget indicates and illustrates as our priorities for the coming year. I want to express my gratitude and appreciation to our amazing city staff, top to bottom, for their honest, thoughtful, uncensored input and discussion as we assembled the budget. I sincerely appreciate being surrounded by non-yes men that push back. It's difficult for me to eloquently vocalize my excitement about the opportunities and challenges facing the city. As we face those challenges head on and embrace the opportunities, we are bound to excel. Brigham City will continue to be the right place to live, work, and visit. As mayor, along with staff, that's we, have identified the following projects as our priorities for the upcoming fiscal year. First, as Brigham City continues to exist and grow, it is requisite to make sure our infrastructure can support that growth. This budget indicates several major projects for the upcoming year. Some have been kicked down the road, and others have been on the back of our minds for quite a while. Either way, I'm positive this is the time to act. We're excited about the bridge on Forest Street and look forward to stewarding this project to completion. I'm sure you've noticed the work taking place down there. We have a new road, and all of the utility relocation work is 99% completed. The next phase is to get the bridge in the air. We've put out, opened, and awarded the bid for the bridge, and I'm happy to say that currently we are on budget with a $31.5 million bridge, $31.5 million that we received from the state of Utah for this project. Barring any unforeseen change orders, or complications as we move forward, we look forward and anticipate its completion prior to or around the fall of 2026. Over the course of the last few years, the city, particularly folks in our water division, have been working to secure federal and state funding to assist with the replacement of our main culinary lines coming down the canyon from the springs and reservoir Brigham City owns, located in the Manaway Valley. These pipes, called penstock or aquifer lines, supply Brigham City and surrounding communities and industries with vital culinary and irrigation water. They also supply 2 hydroelectric plants with water. The pipes are currently constructed above and below ground as they travel down the canyon, and 95% of that pipe is well over 60 years old. The replacement lines will be larger in diameter, 42 inches to be exact, made from stronger modern materials, and will be buried, ready to serve our community for many more decades. Number 3. Oh no, this is still part of the same. We've received federal and state funding to help complete this project. FEMA has awarded a little over $9 million to Brigham City, and the state has also funded an additional $3 million for this project. Last year, if you remember, we discussed a new water tank being constructed on the north end of town, just above Cotter Canyon. This project has been placed on hold. and we will use those funds towards the penstock, as it is more eminent in importance. Even with the large amounts being awarded by the city, we still have need to go out and find money, $4 million of city monies to complete this project. My budget includes the city issuing a bond to complete this project and other needed substation and line projects in public power. I would propose a work session to discuss these projects and funding in more detail. My budget also includes a 5% fund. My budget includes 5% to fund an increase in employee wages. Unfortunately, the city isn't immune to the inflation that continues to rise throughout the nation. Believe me when I say I understand the pain citizens are feeling and the difficulty presented in trying to make... My God, sorry, it keeps going down, doesn't it? The pain citizens are feeling and the difficulty presented in trying to make our family budget stretch. Being self-employed, I haven't been able to increase my own wages or that of my employees for several years now. However, I'm ever concerned that if Brigham City does not remain competitive in the job market, we will lose good employees and have real difficulty in maintaining the standard of services that are required, that our community requires and is accustomed to. Not to mention the additional cost to the city, i.e. the citizens, associated with replacing them in the long term. I'm ever grateful for the diligence and integrity of our staff and the sacrifice of their families, as most, if not all, Brigham City employees are on constant around-the-clock call. Third, several decades ago, Brigham City and Staker Parsons, formerly just Parsons, entered into an agreement concerning the relocation of several power lines that ran in an easement between their property line and the Forest Service property. Simply stated, as the quarry grew, it would require that those lines would need to be relocated, both the easement and the power poles, further up the mountain at Brigham City's expense. Obviously, 50 to 80 years ago, they never imagined the time would ever come to exercise that contract. However, the time is here, and the budget reflects that cost. Next, as you are very aware, last November, the citizens of Brigham City voted to repeal the sales tax associated with mass transit corridor preservation. This tax was sent directly to UTA. This goes away in this budget as it was repealed. In 2023, the state legislature passed legislation to address the transportation infrastructure funding shortfall throughout the state. As a result of that legislation, Box Elder County enacted an additional quarter percent sales tax. The city now receives a portion of this tax to address our transportation infrastructure needs. We have also seen an increase of funding from the existing gasoline taxes allocated from the state. With this increase in revenue, you'll find in my budget an increase of $750,000 from the previous year's budget for these roads and sidewalk projects. In addition to that, city staff and engineers will be completing an evaluation and present ongoing maintenance recommendation for our existing roadways in the future. Next, we've received a grant from the state to improve a large spring located east of Brigham City's reservoir in the Manaway Valley. It is a rather large spring that, once improvements are completed, will add significant clean, fresh spring water to our already healthy culinary water supplies. And lastly, we are purchasing land for the future expansion of our beautiful Brigham City Cemetery. This will add significant space for our citizens' final resting places in the future. As you take a look at this graph, you'll notice the net cost of public safety in the general fund. As you can see, we're continuing to see increases in the net cost of public safety. I'm so thankful for the outstanding men and women we have working in our public safety departments. They keep us safe and ensure that Brigham City is a great place to live and do business. We are currently fully staffed in both fire and police departments, and we need to keep that momentum going. I'm dedicated to attracting and retaining good people for Brigham City, and so is our police chief and command staff. So everyone understands what we are wrestling with in public safety. I wanted to do a quick comparison of what our costs and property tax revenues were 10 years ago versus today. For the fiscal year ending in 2015, our total public safety expenses were $4.4 million. That same year, the city collected a total of $1.2 million in property taxes to fund public safety. Roughly 25% of the public safety budget was coming from property taxes. As you may deduce, funding public safety is also a main contributor to the large transfer from our utility fund. What a blessing it is that Brigham City has its own public utility that allows us to reinvest in our public safety and other departments. My proposed budget for this coming fiscal year has the total cost for public safety at $11.2 million. This is an increase of $6.8 million, or 114% over the last 10 years. This is why over the last few years the city has voted to increase property taxes. That money was used to fund public safety. Last year was the exception. That increase was specifically earmarked for sidewalks, if you remember. I get it, no one likes property taxes, me included. However, I also like living in a community that when I call 911 and need help, I get it. Property taxes have increased from $1.2 million in 2015 to an anticipated $2.3 million in 2024 in our budget. I understand those are large numbers. That isn't lost on me. However, if we want to match this year's budget to the 27% level of funding in 2015, we would need to increase property taxes to generate another $755,000. I don't feel that now is the time to ask for a property tax increase. Therefore, this budget does not have a proposed tax increase or a scheduled truth in taxation this year. In May of 2022, the city hired Mr. Dave Berg, a consultant, to perform an electrical rate study. Mr. Berg provided a 4-year plan for the city to follow with our electric rates. This budget implements fiscal year 2025 rates that were proposed and approved by council in his presentation, the third of the 4. Mr. Berg had included a PPAC, or power purchase acceleration clause, adjustment clause, in the schedules that he had provided. We are working very hard to get the PPAC to the rates shown here. The proposed increases are for all customers, residential, commercial, and industrial. This table that you see shows the rates for residential customers. Possibly against my better judgment in direct opposition to reality, I'm proposing the PPAC be cut in half with the adoption of this budget and beginning July 1. We will continue to monitor power prices and evaluate our position every 5 to 6 months. We will also continue to make any needed adjustments to ensure the well-being and solvency of our city. Next. My budget includes a $3 increase per month for water rates and a $1 increase per black garbage can increase. These increases are needed to fund the increased costs the city is experiencing within these services. The water base rate for the city's average residential customer will increase from $20 a month to $23. Now, in full disclosure, this was a fun budget meeting because $23 was a compromise between me and city staff. I wanted $25, and let me tell you why. We've spent over $2 million in the last few years on land purchases in Manaway and their connected or subsequent water rights that were attached. This has allowed us to develop our springs and procure water rights. Over the next few years, I want to be able to purchase water rights and water shares as they become available. In fact, my budget this year has $428,000 just for the purchase of water shares in Manaway. Water is life, and we're going to grow and we're going to need more water. And so we need money to buy those water rights to ensure that we can have water flowing within our city. Garbage will see its rate go from $15.30 to $16.30 a month. This increase and that price does include the $6.10 landfill charge. Next. I'm also proposing we hold the transfer from the utility fund at 12% to the general fund. Last year, we reduced that transfer to 12% from where it had been historically at 15%, if you recall. That money in the utility fund will allow us to complete much-needed capital projects with our infrastructure in the utility fund. We're able to hold that transfer from the utility fund because of how well the economy is doing in Brigham City. And you can see by this graph, our sales tax revenues continue to be at all-time highs, My budget anticipates $5.5 million coming from sales tax. You'll notice the yellow line that's pictured up there never decreases. That's property tax. It's my opinion and my experience that raising property taxes are the last thing to do, because once they are up, they're there and they aren't going down. However, you'll notice the black line, which is fees and the transfer from the utility fund, increases and decreases over time. I'm a proponent of increasing and decreasing fees as needed before touching a tax increase, and that's what my budget reflects. Just an FYI, if sales tax revenues were to see a decrease, we would definitely need to revisit the transfer percentage coming from the utility fund. Here's the bottom line for my proposed budget. It's a $101 million budget. Now, with that number, don't get too excited. It's important to keep in mind that this budget includes over $40 million in one-time funding from various grants. That money is required to be accounted for in the budget, even though it is only a pass-through. So please be aware of that. The $20 million for the overpass is included in the streets department inside the general fund. Public safety's budget is $11.2 million. The mayor's office, you'll notice, has an increase of $200,000 for the hiring of an in-house full-time city attorney. We're super looking forward to this. This has been a request for the last couple years by all the city's department heads. All the department heads of the city are in full support of this decision, as the need for legal services has increased exponentially across all city departments with the growth of the city. With that being said, I'd like to thank the attorneys at Mann, Hadfield, Thorne. They've been an important part of Brigham City's team over the last 50 years. This includes Walt Mann, Reed Hadfield, Judge Ben Hadfield, Steve Hadfield, Jeff Thorne, Judge Kirk Morgan, Colt Mund, and our very own Mike Christiansen. We would continue to use Mann, Hadfield, Thorne to handle the city's prosecution of criminal cases, even with this hire of an in-house attorney. In 2013, the total subsidy of these departments that you see pictured here, and if you can't see the small lettering, it is the community center, the museum, the swimming pool, recreation, parks, and cemetery. That subsidy in 2012-2013 was approximately $1.3 million. For 2024-25, we are anticipating a total subsidy of $2.3 million. This is an 83% increase over this period. The funding for these departments, along with public safety, are the main contributors to the large transfer from the utility fund. When you ask where that money goes, why we transfer, this is why, and this is where it goes. These departments, well, usually these departments are looked at as the redheaded stepchildren. If anything's going to go in a budget, it's going to be these. These are the ones that are looked at, to be honest with you. But I disagree with that. These departments are vitally essential to our community. They represent what makes us a community. They contribute largely to the wonderful quality of life we enjoy in Brigham City, but not only that, to the communities around us. I've included the revenue sources for the general fund up here. The intergovernmental revenue is where the funding from the state is included for the overpass on Forest Street. Again, this budget does not, let me repeat, does not include the city going through truth and taxation for a property tax increase for this fiscal year. Council members, friends, it's my pleasure to present to you a balanced budget. I want to thank the department heads for their support in this process. I now turn the 2024-25 fiscal year budget over to our Mayor Pro Tem, Matt Jensen. It is now the council's duty and privilege to evaluate, debate, adjust if agreed upon, and plan work sessions for, and then ultimately approve this budget, their budget, by July 1st, 2024. Just as a side note at the end here, this mayor's budget presentation will be available shortly to the public on the Brigham City app, and that app is available for your Apple and Android devices. It will also be posted on the city's social media outlets. This will allow citizens to become informed and use as a reference at their leisure as time goes on. Thank you very much.